I've been thinking about this show a lot lately, and every week I'm just blown away by Pedro Pascal as an actor.
He's great.
He really is, man. And I was thinking, you know what? It's tough for these actors these days. They don't get paid as much as they used to. He should start an OnlyFans.
He should.
Maybe just for us, he can dress up as all his characters from his shows and stuff. Oh my God, we're live.
No, I don't care.
Oh, please understand.
Say who you can save.
All right, so The Last of Us, Episode 5, Endure and Survive, written by Craig Mazin, directed by Jeremy Webb. I thought this was arguably the best episode of the season so far. We've still got some episodes to go, and I really love the first three. And I think what they've done so well is they're adding different things to some of the storylines that they're bringing from the game. And for the most part, it's welcomed additions. Just some of them are a bit bigger than others, but it's the little changes. Like in this instance, we're focusing on Sam and Henry, and they're on the run from this resistance group. But in the game, Sam isn't deaf. I think that was actually an interesting change because it adds a new element of fear to the environment where he has to look at his brother, and that's where he could tell how dire these situations are. Like when they're witnessing the shootout that Joel had in the previous episode, and Henry rushes him. Sam has no idea what's going on because he can't hear the gunshots. So that was an interesting change. But overall, what they did with their relationship, the way they brought it from the games, coming into it, we both knew it was going to be traumatizing for the audience. Similar to the changes they made with Tess's death. This just hit 10 times harder. For me, at least. I don't know. How did you feel about that and this episode overall?
Well, I mean, having a child be infected and their brother shooting the child and then killing himself is definitely going to be sad no matter how you do it. But then they decided to be like, well, let's make the kid a little younger. Give him leukemia and make him deaf. If it wasn't sad enough, let's just add on a couple things to it. But yeah, I actually played that part in the game earlier in the day, and then I had to watch that at night, so it hit me twice. And it's just a very sad, heartfelt moment. And yeah, I like how they did take that extra few minutes of time in the beginning of the episode to show where they're coming from and their situation here. A little bit different from the games in terms of their backstory, but the essence of those characters is kind of the same in their relationship and what they do for Joel and Ellie. Kind of, I think Mazin says it at the end of the episode, they're kind of a reflection of their relationship, and Joel sees what happens to them as something that could potentially happen to him and Ellie, and that kind of changes him in that way.
Right, when he finds out that he's a collaborator, his first instinct is to say, I don't work with rats. But then he learns more about his situation. Well, even Joel comes to that conclusion almost on his own, where he's watching Ellie and Sam play, and he realizes, yeah, if I was in that situation, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe I would have done the same thing. And then Henry explains further what the situation actually was, that he sold out someone who was pretty much beloved by this resistance group, that he was fair, that he was strong, tough, but most importantly, forgiving. So that's why it's weighing on him. And these impossible choices that they keep introducing throughout the season have been very fascinating from a moral standpoint, and not only just a storytelling standpoint, because you start to wonder, what would you do in that situation? If you know this person is so important to the larger group, would you be willing to sell him out to save your brother? I think most people would answer yes. And like you mentioned, making him a bit younger, it definitely adds a new element of sadness to it, because in the game they do feel like brothers. Here it does very much feel like father and son. So that's where, even Henry mistakes Joel as Ellie's dad, and they're quick to shoot that down. But of course, there's a ton of similarities that they can draw from each other's situations. So all that stuff was really good. And I thought the tone of this episode was a step up from episode 4. I mentioned that it should have been a more intense experience. To me, you felt the intensity throughout this episode. You felt the desperation of them trying to escape from the resistance group, them trying to ration the food, strategizing how they're going to escape. So all of that stuff really adds to the way the episode builds momentum, and then you have that incredible finale there, where once again, this happens in the game, where you have to take out the sniper, which is a really fun part in the game. I'm a little upset they took out all the shit that he shouts at you. He's like, I see you, motherfucker, right?
Yeah. No, and he's also Chris Kyle in the game.
Right, yeah, no, he's a
You know-
pure marksman.
Yeah, he talks shit. I died like 10 times. He has his goonies all around. Joel is just like scooted right around.
Yeah, he was a solid snake in this episode.
It's very frustrating to see someone just do it, no deaths.
Well, he's probably like a 13-year-old playing the game. You know, he's not somebody in their late 20s. Got all the hand-eye coordination, so.
I'm playing on normal, you know. It's hard. He's playing on easy.
Well, hard is hard. Normal is normal. Right, so he finds the sniper, takes him out, and then the horde of zombies comes in the game. But not this many zombies.
No,
and there's not a fucking bloater. This was a goddamn militia.
This is like the most, I think, that I've been on screen. I don't remember seeing in the game, at least up until, well, I played both games, so nothing comes to mind. Especially at the point I'm at in the first game replaying it that has this many.
Yeah, and it's the second time they've done that because Tess's death is just the military in the game. In the show, it's a horde of zombies. And yeah, it looks like they were running a bit deeper with this roster. And of course, you got the big boy there, the bloater. And I love the way they use the bloater, where it's like, we can't take this guy out. He's just going to run amok. He's ripping heads off and he's stomping motherfuckers. And he was so intimidating.
Yeah.
And I thought the CGI was really well done as well. But just the chaos of that sequence, and we're jumping ahead here, but I thought that was so well done. It sort of felt like a video game from Joel's perspective because he's so focused on protecting Ellie, and I thought that was cool, seeing her running around trying to avoid things and Joel having her back, taking out all the zombies. So that sequence was just incredible. But it's the development, the emotional development leading up to it, which is so important, which is why I think it works so well. Because you're just so invested in Sam and Henry. It's the second time they've done this, where they introduce two characters who are not going to be in further episodes, and you fall in love with them.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I don't want to say like a mixed bag when it comes to that, but like I think what they did with Frank and Bill and Sam and Henry was excellent. But then when you look on the other side, the extra development with like Kathleen and her resistance group, I still don't think was that great this episode either. I don't think it was because it wasn't as big of a part because you did have other things going on to kind of supplement that storyline. But like when she's making that speech about her brother in the room, I'm like, I'm glad your brother's dead and I hope you dies too.
Oh my God. That's dark.
I know.
I don't think that's the lesson you're supposed to learn from that, but hey, maybe that's on the writing.
That's what I took from it. Yeah, I just wasn't really invested in the villain story for this episode. She was fucking brutal. I will give her that. At the end when he's like, so you got to understand. She's like, oh, no, you did. Maybe you should have just died. I was like, oh, that's fucking cold.
Right, yeah. She's like, no, I knew about the cancer.
And it's a different like presentation of a villain. I do kind of like a softer spoken, but like truly fucking sadistic type villain. Like Umbridge maybe. Kind of like, like on the outside, like, you know, soft voice and everything, but it's just the worst. Yeah, I think some things in that could have been improved or even just taken out altogether and focused on other things.
Right, because I think they're both trying to hammer home the same point, because she's very much a hypocrite.
Right.
She's explaining to Henry, what's more important, the group or your little brother? Kids die all the time. But she's doing the same exact thing, and she's avoiding this problem that was shown to her by her number two. And then look what happens here at the end. So
Right.
You have this personal vendetta, and then it fucks over your entire army, which was, Joel pointed that out. He's like, why the hell are they sending an entire army after you? What the hell did you guys do? That's a little excessive.
And I get the point they're trying to show, but like I honestly got that point. They got that point across for me personally when they're going into every home trying to find Henry in the last episode, because that just clicks something. Oh, you're basically just Fedra now. And in the beginning of the episode, the way they were treating anybody who either was a collaborator or former Fedra after they took power of Kansas City.
Yeah, I think there could have been, maybe if you don't even include that character, or you scale it back a bit, because I think from Henry and Sam's perspective, like you mentioned, that point is hammered home pretty well. Even the conversation that he's having with Joel in the beginning when he talks about what they did for 20 years and then the resistance group, that's all they've known. So what are they going to do when they come into power? The same exact thing. And I think, yeah, her scenes were definitely improved in this episode. I probably like that scene a bit more when she's back home in her room telling the story about how he protected her by telling her this was an impenetrable fortress, that the storm outside can't get you. So it speaks to the trust that Sam has no choice but to put in his older brother. You see the drawings, he literally views him as a superhero. And it's the same way that Kathleen saw her older brother as the hero that was going to protect her, But in this world, heroes die. And it makes you wonder what's worse. Losing that person who makes you feel safe, who makes you feel secure, and then seeing what you become after that person dies. For Kathleen, she becomes this vengeful, sadistic person. Or is it worse to be someone who fails to protect the person that looks up to you, like with Sam and Henry? But when you look at Henry, especially from Joel's perspective, he's a kid too. He's a young man. So much pressure has been put on him to try and protect his brother. And that's all you can do is tell them that it's going to be okay, trying to shield them as much as you can from the outside storm. But that proves to be, in some situations, impossible. And that's why it's so fucking heartbreaking. So there was a lot of heartbreak from different characters in this episode in very similar veins. But I agree with you. I wonder if maybe if the character was casted better, because I just keep seeing Rose from 2.5 Men. I'm like, what the fuck is Rose doing in the zombie apocalypse?
I didn't know you were that big of a 2.5 Men fan.
Back in the day, man, it was always on the tube.
The intro song is a banger.
How does it go again?
Just men.
Oh, yeah, manly men.
And yeah, like I said, I do think the little backstory does help. Like, we obviously get some with Sam and Henry, but, it's very much, I want to go join the Fireflies, or, I'm just trying to protect my brother. And that element is still strong in this episode as well. So they share a lot of similarities, and but just a little tweaks to make their relationship a little bit more of this world, I think, definitely helped. And a lot of the things I've noticed have just been ripped straight from the game. Even like things like the attention to detail to little dialogue the characters have back and forth when you're just running and in the middle of gameplay, they'll add into the game. And there's a nice nod to that little community they had in the tunnels with the goal set up and the little rule board and everything, just ripped straight from the game. So that's always fun to see.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking as well, that they escaped down low and they started their own little commune. And that reminded me so much of the multiplayer, because of course that is a sequence that does happen in the game, but just being in that classroom and trying to kill somebody else from halfway across the country. Good times, man, playing factions. But yeah, that was a nice little touch. I was so happy that they allowed them to play soccer with that goal, because once I saw that setup, I was like, man, there better be a soccer ball there, because I wouldn't be able to resist going straight David Beckham. But and that was important for the development of that relationship. Just Henry and Joel talking, but also watching Ellie and Sam get the chance to be kids. And it's any moment that they can find that sort of innocence and freedom is a moment that's going to make you feel warm and happy momentarily, at the very least. And those moments are important throughout their journey. Even though Joel is such a hardened soldier, he's all about moving forward and endure and survive, right? Even though they called it redundant, that's sort of Joel's motto when it comes to surviving and when it comes to dealing with this world. That was a sweet, relaxing breath of fresh air. And it's important for Joel to have these moments so he can get back in touch with his softer side and realize that it's not just about enduring and surviving. It's about living in any moments where you can find those opportunities. And they did a really good job, like I mentioned, with Ellie and Sam in this episode. Even though he is a bit younger, you see Ellie reverting back to being a kid because she is 14. So she finally has someone to read comics with and draw with and enjoy each other's presence without it being so tense, because that's how it can be sometimes with adult and child. So when you're a kid, it's nice to have someone who thinks like you around until,
Yeah, man. That sucks.
Well, I thought they did a great job at the end with the board, when they're writing each other back and forth. Just seeing their reactions to the messages was so heartbreaking, especially the one where Sam asks, if you turn into a monster, is it still you inside? It's almost as if Ellie knew right there and then that he was bitten. Yeah. I don't know who's a worse doctor, Ellie or Patrick when SpongeBob got the suds. That shit ain't working.
I mean, how does she know? How do you know? She's the chosen one, after all.
For a moment I thought, maybe what's she cooking here?
I mean, she doesn't have an MD. She's not going to... Where else are you going to get... You saw what they had to do to get the other medicine. I think it's something where maybe it would work, but also just to comfort him.
Oh, no, sure.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, it's just a nice gesture. Mm-hmm. A heartbreaking gesture, once again. It's like holding somebody who's dying in your arms and telling them everything's going to be okay. Just praying that, if we stay up throughout the night, he won't turn. But when she sees him sitting at the end of the bed, he's still okay. He hasn't turned just yet, but he's thinking about it. And then when he turns, it's...
No, it's such a tense moment, man. Especially in the game, and the way they were able to recreate that in the show, I thought was just as good, especially just Henry's reaction to it. Like, he just doesn't know what's happening, what's going on, what to do in the situation, pulls the gun on Joel, then ends up shooting his little brother and just completely breaks him.
Yeah, man. I remember the first time I played this in the game, it totally broke me, shook me to my core. The way he has to process all of that information so quickly, grappling with the reality of killing your little brother after he did so much to try and give them a happy ending. He made all these tough choices. He made enemies at every turn, so desperate for them to endure and survive, and they don't get that happy ending, and it's the cruelty and unfairness of the world. And I'll keep reiterating this point. Tess's death in episode 2 hit me harder than it did playing the game, and I think it's similar for this moment with Sam and Henry, where even knowing that it's coming, it's because of that prior development, because of the chemistry that the two brothers had, the loving relationship. And as I mentioned, how all the choices Henry had to make to get them to this point, and he gets bitten, he's infected, and that's where it ends. So I imagine this is going to be a key moment for a lot of fans, where we'll be able to look at this episode and its ending as the before and after of the series. Alright guys, before we finish this episode, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Smile Brilliant. Hey look, I'm a floating head. Bad breath can be an annoying problem to deal with, especially when in social settings like out on a date or recording a podcast with your buddies. Only 2% of the population has enough naturally occurring good bacteria to fight off bad breath and maintain a healthy mouth. What people don't realize is that when brushing your teeth or using mouthwash, you're killing both the good and bad bacteria in your mouth. Unfortunately, bad bacteria grows back much faster than good bacteria. So even if you use these products consistently, you may still find yourself with bad breath. But we have a solution. Smile Brilliant's Dental Probiotics, chewable tablets with concentrated amounts of the healthy bacteria your mouth needs, so that you can speak freely without worrying about any dirty looks from your friends or coworkers. Chewed once a day before bed and after brushing your teeth, these tablets populate your mouth with the good bacteria first, before the bad stuff has a chance to grow back. By repeating this process on a daily basis, studies have shown that you can truly increase the population of good bacteria, while subsequently reducing the population of bad bacteria. Studies have also shown that clinical-grade dental probiotics reduce plaque, cavities, gum inflammation, and of course, bad breath. So head on over to smilebrilliant.com and check out their dental probiotics. You can also browse their selection of other products like mouth guards, electric toothbrushes, whitening gel, whitening trays, water flosser, and more. Plus, you will receive 20% off your order when you use promo code NERDSOUP at checkout. So don't wait. Head on over to their website, choose the products that are right for you, and take care of your teeth. And just to complement the performances of Lamar Johnson and Kayvon Montreal Woodward as Henry and Sam, similar to Joel and Ellie, the fear, the visceral emotions that they were able to convey throughout this episode. When Henry needs to be loving, he is. When he needs to be a hero or a father figure, that's what he is for Sam. But there are times when he can't hide his fear and his sadness, and Sam is able to pick up on that. And then his reactions of, because he's deaf, having to process it in a way that's more confusing for him, because he has to wait for Henry to fill him in on the situations. Their performances were great, and similar to Bill and Frank, where you only spend an episode with them, but they gave it their all. They were so committed to these roles of bringing these characters to life for the audience, and I think they nailed that completely.
Yeah, 100%. I think both of them were great additions. I mean, well, for the most part, the cast has just been perfect so far. And I think even, like you mentioned before, having Sam be portrayed as deaf, like, just to show the reliance he has on his brother, you know, it's even more so, that's even heightened in this world. And I think both of their performances bounced off each other very well. Yeah, and like you said, with Henry being able to convey, or having Sam being able to pick up on little changes in his facial expressions to know something's off here, or use other clues other than just voice and hearing to pick up on certain situations.
Yeah, when it's confusing for a kid, it's always harder to watch. I think when children are in these situations, that innocence, it always just bothers me, because similar with Ellie, it's not something that he should be experiencing. He should be playing, reading his comic books, having fun. Obviously, that's just candies and rainbows in this world. But their performances, like I keep saying, just very emotionally impactful. And like you mentioned, the whole cast has been so great, so another great addition to the cast. What's the line that he says from the game? when he realizes his brother's turned? Because I know they changed it.
He blames Joel. I think he says something like, you did this, or like it's all your fault, or something along those lines. But
yeah, and here he says, what did I do?
yeah.
So before he pulls the trigger on himself, he blames himself. And I think that was a better change, because in the game you could chalk it up. I mean, it's horrifying and traumatic any way you slice it. But maybe he's just so disturbed by what just happened that he has no choice but to pull the trigger on himself. This adds another layer of sadness because he's blaming himself and then killing himself.
No, it's just a fucked up situation. Like, to go through, think about like all he had to go through to save his brother, and it still just turned out this way.
The way they focused on Ellie's face after he does kill himself was another change from the game. And you see that reaction, and that blame shifts from Henry to Ellie because she leaves behind the board and it just says, I'm sorry. And I think that even broke Joel a little bit there because she's starting to feel how he feels about Tess and about his own daughter.
And I don't remember if they ever fully discuss it in the game again, but I think to have that moment of reflection is a nice little addition, because after that happens, they're just goofing around like Joel and Ellie, you know? But to have that extra couple minutes of them burying the bodies, leaving the note, and obviously visibly distraught by this experience, I think just adds something to the characters that you know they're not going to be the same after this in one way or the other.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like one of the defining moments of the season and a great halfway point, right? We're going to be able to look back on this and vividly see a before and after, not only with the story, but when it comes to Joel and Ellie's characters and their emotional development, which is so important for this story. But it turns out to be similar to Tess's death, just so heartbreaking in a way that the game was heartbreaking, but not to this extent. And that's what you can do. You look at the game and you think, oh, this is great. How could this be any better? Well, they're showing you here. Even if I didn't love episode 4 and the backstory they gave us with Kathleen, it worked so much better here with Sam and Henry. Just getting some more information about their stories, about their journeys. And like I said, it just adds so much emotional weight to the heartbreaking ending there. But I also got a kick out of their first encounter. It's funny how we're jumping around here. But when Henry's trying to hold them up with the gun, and Ellie's like, oh, don't be intimidated by Joel. That's how he always sounds. Mm-hmm. Joel, tell him everyththing's good. Joel's like,
everything's great.
Dude.
Yeah.
I started laughing out loud. That was a perfect sarcastic response there. And it was, them trying to put on the mask of being tough guys, Sam and Henry. You see right through it. I guess Joel didn't at the very first. He's just he doesn't trust anybody. But you see the way he's holding the gun and he's shaking. And even when he tells Joel, I've never even killed anybody. So to be in that situation, to have to, like I said, put on that hardened mask, it's difficult. But it was funny to watch because we know just how loving those two brothers actually are.
Yeah, a lot of the back and forth between Joel and Ellie, and even when they interact with Henry and Sam, was very enjoyable to watch. Even the lighter moments, but even some of the, deeper moments. And I think we definitely got a little bit more of Joel seeing a little bit of a shift, where like by the end of the episode he invites them to go to Wyoming with them,
right?
So there is somebody there. I know he talks about doing all these bad things and doing what he had to do to survive and all that, and puts on this hardened persona, but at the end of the day, like, that old Joel is still in there. It might take a while to build that trust, but when you do, he's still the same decent guy,
right? And I think the way he doesn't trust people, I think a lot of people in this
environment.
Right. Yeah. But the other side of that is if you let people in, that's adding more emotional weight to your journey. So, yeah, we can be buddies. We can be this sort of pseudo family. But then when they die, now you have a personal relationship with them. You know who they are. You know their names. You know their backstories. If you would have kept them at a distance, maybe it's not as traumatizing. But that's the curse of being a human, especially in this world. Even though you don't trust anybody, you still crave that sense of community and that sense of togetherness.
And that's why I like the change of his reasoning for going out on this adventure in the first place is to seek out Tommy, the only family he has, to kind of bring back some sense of normalcy and humanity to him, where in the game Tommy's just a convenience for him, and they're not really on talking terms. But I think this adds an element to Joel's character that even though he doesn't have it currently, or he doesn't show that side of him, like, his reasoning for going out is to make sure his brother's okay and to recoup at least something from his past, because he's just been going through so many losses and it's taken a toll on him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the one part of Kathleen's story that not the one part, because I think her character was an improvement on last episode. But when Henry's talking about what her brother meant to the resistance group and knowing that she wasn't supposed to be in this position makes her character a bit more tragic. That it was her brother who was the respected one and the beloved one, and he dies, and now she's got this new responsibility. So, and her personal vendetta just absolutely consumes her and leads her to this tragic ending. So I think the way that they tied in these three stories was done pretty well. Even if Kathleen's was the weakest, I think it tied into the overall theme of the episode about the importance of family and how that could lead to your demise. So it's a tough thing to grapple with, man. I'm so excited to hear the perspectives on people who haven't played the game and how did this come off for them, because just from immediate reactions on the internet, it looks like people were traumatized like we were.
No, yeah, it's a lot, man. Especially after Bill and Frank, such a sad in different ways, because you can actually spin Bill and Frank as like the most romantic, cutest shit you've ever seen.
Oh yeah, dude, it's like this exploration of mortality and growing old and how that impacts you and the people you leave behind.
Bittersweet. This is just fucking
abrupt.
Yeah, like bitter herb.
Bitter.
Yeah.
Bitter.
No, bitter herb.
No, there's absolutely, right, bitter herb. There you go. There's no sweetness whatsoever to this.
It's just, but it's sad. And like both episodes were, I mean, similar in the sense of like two new characters getting some backstory. I think they delved a little bit more deeper into Bill and Frank. That was basically their own little side movie, but it adds that element of don't get attached to the people you just meet because you don't know what's going to happen for both the audience and the perspective of Ellie and Joel.
Yeah, definitely. What did you think about them going through the tunnels? Some people seem to be a bit disappointed that a clicker didn't pop out or some infected.
Well, that's the thing. Like, in the game, it's every 5 seconds you're running into some sort of either clicker or soldier or obstacle here. I don't think you can really do that in this show. It just takes too much. And it'll take away from the character moments and some development, but...
You know what I thought was a great line of dialogue? When she says, oh, what if we run into the ones who can't see and hear like bats? Mm-hmm. And he was like, you survived an encounter with a clicker? And she's like, yeah, 2 of them. And he goes, oh, there you go. You guys will be absolutely fine.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the way they... it's not the game where you can just sneak up, kill, or spend like 10 minutes trying to get
Ellie
by
did use the shiv on the neck.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, that's a good move.
I think you want to make that a big deal when they run into them. So if either Joel just runs through them like nothing, or you got to spend actual time on the way they are able to combat them.
Yeah, it's more realistic. Mm-hmm. I think there could have been a moment of one of them sneaking up on them, but it does a good job of building the tension because you don't know what's going to happen. Right. You're anticipating that they're going to come out, and they don't. So at the very least, Henry was correct about that there have been no infected there, that they're all just being gathered up in that one area. So I think they more than made up for it because that's a bit more cinematic. Like you mentioned, when you're playing a game, you want to play the game. So you're going to have more occurrences of zombies that you need to kill and adversaries that are human. But this is more cinematic. You just have them all rush out and you have that firefight. They get overwhelmed. The chaos, Joel backing up Ellie. To me, it was
in the game,
shot and directed so well.
You're swarmed by fucking infected, by the soldiers. It's madness getting to that bridge. And then that's one thing. Joel's getting out of this too clean. He gets beat up in the game. He's got CTE at least.
Yeah, he hasn't taken many shots.
Maybe I'm just bad at the game. So I'm getting my ass fucking whipped.
You're like, Joel hasn't died once in the show. What the hell? In the game, he dies 27 times. Oh, that's canon.
It's so annoying. I got stuck on one spot because I had low health, and every time I died, I came back with my low health.
Oh, yeah, that's the worst. But I thought they did a good job of incorporating him with the sniper, covering Ellie, and then the whole moment in the car when she sneaks in and then the zombie comes in after her.
The little
starts doing cartwheels and shit.
The fuck was that?
Yeah, that was really, really scary. And then her going over to save Sam and Henry, and unfortunately that's where he gets bitten. But just the chaos of that sequence was great. Like I said, very cinematic, scary, horrifying. Poor Pierce gets taken out.
Yeah, that bloater. He wasn't even... I don't know what he wanted to do. He didn't even eat him. He just fucking ripped him apart.
No, just ripped his fucking head off. And there's some violence from the game. Yeah, I think the way that they made them friends in the show was a bit smarter because Henry realizing, I know why you climbed up all the way. You're trying to get a view of the city. Well, I already know an escape route, so I'll provide the way, you clear the way. So I thought the writing, from a bigger picture perspective, was done well, and the dialogue was really sharp.
No, I mean, there's not much more you can really ask for with this type of episode. I think it really hit all the beats of what we'd liked from the previous episodes, but, added probably the best action sequence we've seen up to this point. Best look at the infected and the clickers that we've seen to this point, and definitely just an emotional payoff. And I think the characters truly, from the beginning of the episode to the end, the way they were able to, and we'll probably see it more of a payoff in the next episode, but the way that this will change the characters, and I think that type of development done in, like an hour's time is pretty impressive and convincing. It's hard to really get that point across, but the way they were able to develop Henry and Sam and their relationship makes that more believable that, yes, this would affect these characters in the way that it does.
Yeah, and they cap it off brilliantly at the end when Sam is asking Ellie, are you scared? Because Ellie is so good at putting on a brave face. And it's because she has that immunity, maybe she's not as scared of the zombies, even though she could still be ripped apart. But she admits that the thing she fears the most is being left alone, of having nobody around. And that isolation is the scariest part of this world, because what if you're the last person standing where you can't be infected, but everything around you is crumbling? So what's worse, being vulnerable, being in danger, or just being alone?
It's so funny, like in our society, it's like, oh, I'm scared of being alone just means like two different things. Like
romantically.
In this world, it's like, no, you can literally be alone because everyone's dead in a zombie.
Yeah. Yeah, puts a new spin on that.
Yeah.
I still am scared of being alone.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying. But I think like that alone is probably worse.
Right. But yeah, for the most part, even though it's not a mid-season finale, I think it works great as a midway point. And like I mentioned, where we're going to look back on this episode as so key in the story and the development in so many different aspects. So yeah, a perfect adaptation of this storyline from the games.
Yeah, and I won't talk about the preview, but I'll just say that next week's looks beautiful in terms of like the environment they're going to be in.
Oh, shit. Let's go. I haven't seen the preview either, so.
Yeah, no, it's just like
they're going to Disney World?
Aesthetically, it's just going to be, I think, pretty sweet.
They're going to Disney.
I wonder what Disney World looks like right now.
Probably a mess. No, knowing Disney, it's up and running.
Yeah, they don't close for shit.
They're like, no, just make sure you got your vaccine.
Yeah, somehow they concocted a device and just no infected anywhere.
Only in Disney. But it costs $200.
It costs you a pretty penny.
Yeah. So nobody can get in. All right, guys, that does it for this episode of Nerd Soup. We will be back next week for episode 6 of The Last of Us. Excited to talk about that. And yeah, for Aaron the Nerd Soup Monkey, I am Beau Oliver, signing off.
Wow, that was probably our best review yet. Hey guys, Aaron the Nerd Soup Monkey here with a brief shameless plug before we end the video. Do you ever feel like you don't have an adequate amount of nerd soup in your life? Like you're going to bed hungry and yearning for the nonsensical yet entertaining nutrients our podcasts provide? Well, we've come up with the perfect solution. The Nerd Soup Fan Question Podcasts, exclusively available to our Patreon supporters. You can sign up now by visiting patreon.com/nerdsoup, and for the price of only $1 per month, you'll receive exclusive access to our weekly podcast, where we answer your questions that don't make it to the main show. And while you're there, you can check out the other rewards we offer to our patrons, like stickers, mugs, t-shirts, behind-the-scenes footage, and appearing in the credits at the end of our videos. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Roll the names of the nerds who make Nerd Soup possible. The reason why the crypto crash didn't send our lives spiraling down a black hole of no return. Alright, I'll stop talking so you can listen to this jazzy-ass music while checking if Beau spelt your name wrong in the credits.